I've just touched a little bit about Rani. She was a young lady with a very mild learning disability, but also had mental health issues. So she had dual diagnosis. So sometimes she didn't fit under mental health services, she didn't fit under learning disabilities. And she was actually a community college, and her family met somebody in the community at the temple who decided actually there was a young man from India who needed a visa and to stay in here, and her mum thought it was a good match. So she thought, well, actually, somebody will marry my daughter, she'll have a life, it gets rid of the stigma of disability, and Rani will live happily ever after. And her mum did that with the best intention. She really did think that actually this was the way forward. Rani got married here. A few weeks into her marriage, she was being financially exploited. She was being sexually assaulted on a regular basis. Her husband didn't want to be with her. It was purely for immigration. But Rani fell pregnant through this marriage, was actually beaten up and forced to have an abortion and suffered horrific abuse. And every time she came back to her mum was saying, oh no, you've got to stick at this marriage because it's for the family honour. We need you to stay together. You know, he's not that bad. But I think Rani's mum didn't want to believe what was happening. And then the guy moved somebody else into the home, and Rani's abuse really escalated, and her mum then intervened, and then the local authority was involved, and myself there supporting her as an independent advocate, making sure that that went through the criminal justice system. But it was very difficult because the courts didn't take it seriously, they didn't want to believe it because she had capacity, and it was very difficult because they kind of dealt with it as a civil matter, but actually things have really improved over the years. I've come across cases where a young man called Raj was married to a lady, and the lady that ended up coming to the UK as his carer became a vulnerable adult in her own right, where she was being exploited by Raj's family. She was expected to cook and clean, look after Raj with his personal care and everything else. It wasn't a marriage, she was just there almost as a domestic slave almost, and that's the nicest way I can put it. And she ended up developing mental health issues, and her family was sent money back because they pick very vulnerable people, very poor background, very poorly educated people sometimes. And it was very, very difficult. But we've moved Raj's wife out of the family home. She now has her own life. But it was very, very difficult because it's like the family felt that they were doing the right thing, but then they were almost abusing her in their own way by holding her passport, holding her money, and sending money back to her family. So her family was saying, well, just stick at this because actually we're having income. So there is so many different factors and situations, because no one forced marriage is the same for a vulnerable adult, because there's so many different motivating factors. The carer being the main one, wanting a carer, but then again about the stigma of disability, financial, immigration, and again where families sometimes will be coerced into thinking actually if the person gets married or has a child it gets rid of the disability. So there's so much that needs to be done in the education as well.